Now, you know when you hadn't planned on doing a vlog, but all of a sudden you come across a potentially interesting story or something that's interesting itself. Well, this vlog is about exactly that. I've not planned to do a vlog today, but up ahead is, I think, something you're going to find interesting. Come along with me. Hello, I'm Hax. I'm a filmmaker and a storyteller. I love to travel, meet fascinating people, go to interesting places and discover amazing things. Come along with me as I search for the fascinating, the interesting and the amazing. Now, I'm in Derbyshire for the weekend and we've come for a bit of a walk and we're heading into a little, it's not even a village, a little place called Litton, and here is a historical mill. Of course, in Derbyshire there are lots of textile industries going on. It's where the Industrial Revolution revolutionized cloth and material making, and this is just a really fascinating little place. I can't call it a village. These cottages were built in the late 1700s when the foundations of the mill were first laid. Litton lies in a beautiful Derbyshire valley not far from the town of Tiswell, and it runs along the River Wye. The building behind me is Litton Mill. It's now been completely refurbished into what I understand as beautiful apartments. But when it was first built, it was a complete industrial material mill or cloth mill, and it was powered by the river that's just here. The mill's architecture is that of a typical 18th century industrial building, with huge windows that were designed to let in as much light as possible. And when you actually walk past, you can see the developers have embraced the whole style of the building. They've preserved, probably had to, these huge windows, but they must let in an incredible amount of light to the apartments. It's lovely. And what I love about it is the fact that the buildings haven't gone to waste, because 10 years ago Litton Mill was almost derelict, so I believe. Now converted to homes, these I believe were the mill offices. And this is the River Wye. You can see right at the back there, it actually went right under the mill house. And of course that's what powered the huge wheels with water going through, powering up all of the industrial machinery that made the cloth. A huge chimney on this building here, and it's been currently renovated into a home, but it must have been a steam room of some description, definitely some place that energy or power was derived. So I've just met one of the locals actually, in fact that's his house, the one with the chimney that I've just referred to, and it's called the gas house, and it was built to make coal gas in an effort to make the mill run 24/7, and the mills in Lancashire were able to run on steam, but this particular mill here at Litton only ran on the water, so it was never really profitable, and apparently in the late 1700s it actually burnt down. The mill was rebuilt, but it became notorious for its child labour when accounts of its cruelty were published in 1822. In fact, it became the subject of a government inquiry. I walk over the little bridge that kind of like sort of channels the water into the what they call the mill run, which is where the water would be designed to speed up and go into the mill, which is where the main wheel would be, and the water would have enough then pressure to turn the wheel. You probably won't see it here on a GoPro, but there are actually trout swimming around here. And apparently there are both rainbow and brown trout in the River Wye. Lovely. Right, we now begin quite a steep climb to another point of interest. And when you go walking, quite often a walk, to me anyway, a walk is a walk. But this particular one, and this is why I'm actually making this little film, this particular one's interesting because there are a couple of features, namely the mill, that quite frankly are interesting. So I'm climbing up away from the River Wye, up along the valley wall, as it were. It's quite steep, but lovely. And at the height of summer, of course, you've got the birds, the thick canopy of trees, and this pathway. It's clearly marked on any Ordnance Survey map, so you could actually retrace it yourself. But it's lovely. And then when you get to the top, there's a little treat, and that is, if you look here, this is the pathway to an old railway that was functional around about the 1700s and 1800s. And this railway cut is now called the Monsill Trail, and it's about 7 miles long. You can cycle it, walk it, run it, whatever. I'm not sure that you can go on motorbikes though, but it's really lovely because it's a little insight to just the roots and the interconnectivity back in the 17 and 1800s of England. Of course, we've streamlined the railways now, but nevertheless, steam conquered the country, as it were. And this is the reason why this walk, for me, is particularly interesting. Take a look. A railway tunnel. How great is that? Now this tunnel apparently is 470 meters long. I think it's incredible, and it's now a tarmacked pathway, and you can walk and cycle into it. It's spooky, I have to say. So the railway first opened in 1863, and the last train ran on the line in 1968. And of course, like a lot of the railways back then, it not only was used for passengers and tourists coming up to the Dales, but also to ship cargo, coal, materials that fed the Industrial Revolution, all in this area. When you're walking along here, of course, you have got this urge to nostalgically think of what it would like in the day of the steam train. I mean, these tunnels, I mean, you can still see a little bit of it. The tunnels would have been sooty, dark, smelly and damp, and it's probably wide enough actually for 2 tracks. So there's probably a westbound and an eastbound track. Very, very popular with kids, I have to say. It's in the middle of school holidays, and you can hear the kids, and they come through on their bicycles. It's terrific, really. And the lights stay on during the daytime. Apparently they go off at dusk. They recommend you don't walk here at night, of course, and with no lights it will be really dark, but fascinating all the same. And there's the expression, light at the end of the tunnel. Sadly, you can't smell that damp coal smell that you probably would have smelled, and sulfur, I guess, as well, back in you know, the 1700s and 1800s when the tunnels were being used properly. And it's considerably cooler in here than it is outside, but nevertheless a really lovely experience, and it makes the walk, as I say, interesting. I love it. Well, when you come out and you're greeted by this harsh light, you're typically greeted by a Derbyshire landscape. And I can't help wondering, while you kind of stand here and contemplate the beautiful valley, what it would have been like to listen to the trains, you know, blowing their whistles and everything like that. No doubt the train drivers or the locomotive driver would have been really tempted to blow his whistle just at this point, because it would reflect and sound and resonate all the way up and down the valley. There are sheep right on the edge of that hill, and it's so steep, and the rocks are so loose. And then another tunnel. This is the Cressbrook tunnel. Slightly shorter, it's only 430 meters long, but nevertheless an impressive tunnel. And if you look down the length of the tunnel, it actually kinks slightly to the right. And the roof is very much darker than the Litton tunnel. And therefore there's not a lot of reflected light. And periodically you've got these lights here, which help illuminate the way. But you can see a bit more of the soot and the grime in this particular tunnel. Although it doesn't smell like I was expecting it to smell. I was expecting that sulphury coal type aroma, but no, not happening. was just thinking about what that local said at the gas house. The fact that the whole industry of material and textile and everything like that, of course, used children and workhouse and people like that. So, and he actually termed it that it was, equivalent to a form of slavery. And of course, that's something that can be very guilty of forgetting. In the 17 and 1800s, particularly the Industrial Revolution, it was all about mechanizing industry and making it more efficient and more profitable. And of course, the people who profited were the landowners, the mill owners, and the key industry owners, I guess. And of course, how these mills were kept profitable were subjugating the workers and keeping them on low wages, which had a reaction and supported poverty. And you listen to all the sounds of the kids enjoying riding through this tunnel. You can't help reflect on how far we've come as a nation. Yes, we still are dealing a lot with poverty and world hunger, but at least in this country we're not exploiting child labour anymore. But it also makes you realise that there are nations in the world that are, and that gives you pause for thought, I guess. And when you reach the end of the tunnel, the track then carries on, I believe, for another 4 miles before it stops and stops becoming a cycle and a public footpath, as it were. Come out of the tunnel, you walk round to your left and you're met with this amazing view of Cressbrook Mill. And back in the day, it produced high quality cotton for lace making. And like Litton, the mill has now been converted into apartments, which again is a great use for a fantastic building despite its dark past. Well, that's it. I'm going to wrap the vlog up now. I'm going to go down that valley and go and grab myself a pint of Derbyshire ale. All that's left for me to say is I hope you've enjoyed watching it. If you have, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Bye-bye.